It's 2025 and you want to learn how to sew, but you don't know where to begin. Don't worry, I got you. You definitely have clicked on the right video.
I'm very passionate about sewing. It's one of my favorite things, so I'm always talking to people about it. And one thing that I've noticed is that people are very excited about the idea of sewing, but they usually just have a few main concerns about getting started. Oh my gosh. So let's talk about those concerns.
You might be worried that getting into sewing is going to be very expensive. Life is pretty busy too, so I can imagine that you're probably concerned about whether you will have enough time to invest into this hobby. Maybe you feel like you're not going to be able to successfully make what you want to make until much further down the road, which is extremely uninspiring and demotivating. I feel ya. Or maybe you're super keen to start, but you literally just have no idea where to begin. Rest assured, anyone who has ever learned to sew from scratch has felt what you're feeling. You are not alone, and I'm here to say today that learning how to sew as an extreme beginner is not as overwhelming as it seems. You can absolutely do it, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be feeling inspired and ready to get started. As soon as you make the decision to start sewing, it's going to get easier and easier the more you practice. So probably the hardest thing you're going to do is decide that you're going to start. But fear not, what's really exciting about sewing is that there is an immediate payoff. Sure, you have to invest in some gear and some tools and fabric, but it's a very practical and helpful skill to learn for your everyday life, and you will find it incredibly motivating that you're not only learning and having fun and working on a hobby, but you're also just making stuff that you can actually use and enjoy in your everyday world. Or at least that's how I feel. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how you can start sewing as an absolute beginner. I'm going to assume that you have no sewing machine, no tools, no experience, no fabric, no nothing. I'm going to give you my absolute best recommendations for the best price and hopefully give you some helpful information to get started on your journey. I'm going to talk about all of the essential tools that you need and the ones that I would specifically recommend, how to sew on a budget, and importantly, how to quickly progress your skills without much extra effort, because you want to be making wonderful things. Before you start sewing, I think it's important to have a really strong why. Why do you want to learn how to sew? Why sew? I have a few thoughts as to why I really love sewing, so I'm going to share a few of those and hopefully they are inspiring and help you answer your own why. Practical. Sewing is practical. You can fix and mend your own clothing and possessions, therefore extending their lifespan and increasing their longevity, which is great for the planet, and it's also great for your wallet. Not to mention, it's really nice not having to throw out your treasures when they get broken. You can just mend them. Sewing is also great because you can sew high quality clothes with high quality fabrics, with high quality finishes on the inside of your garments, which means your clothes are just going to be delightful to wear. You can design them exactly how you like. They're going to fit you really nicely, and ultimately you're just going to look super cool because you're choosing what you want to wear rather than letting stores and fast fashion and trends dictate that a little bit. You can think of it and then you can sew it and then you can embody the dream. If I can see it, then I can do it. If I just believe it, there's nothing to it. I believe I can sew. I believe I can sew. Probably 100 people just clicked unsubscribe right now. The last practical thing is that you can clone your clothes. So this means that if you have a t-shirt that fits you perfectly or a skirt that you found in a vintage store and you can never repurchase ever again, you can make these things. You can make patterns from the clothes that exist and then you can replicate them, which is just such a big life hack. And I love it. Sewing is also wonderful for your brain. You're learning a new skill, you're growing as a person, you're working with your hands, which brings you into the present. You have to work on a little bit of general maths and critical thinking, and also you get that satisfaction of starting a project and finishing a project again and again and again and again, and you get to tell yourself, wow, I can do that. I can actually do projects. I find that really fun and satisfying. And motivating too. Also, you get a reward at the end of your project. You get the thing that you made. It's awesome. You can also make really cool clothes that feel inherently like yourself because you get to make all of the creative decisions. You can make really fun patchwork textiles. You can work with vintage textiles. You can work with vintage patterns. You can incorporate more color and play into your wardrobe. Do you want to dress only in 1940s clothes? You can. Do you want to dress only in 1840s clothes? you can do that also. It's pretty fun and the opportunities, endless. Lastly, sewing can save a lot of money. Some sewists are going to disagree with me on that because once you get into it, you can end up spending a bit of money because you're having so much fun. But if you are smart, you can get fabrics for cheap, you can thrift, and you can make wonderful things on a budget. And also, if you are wanting to be buying sustainably or ethically made clothing, that is really expensive. So a really great way to be sustainable and ethical in your clothing consumption is make it yourself. It's very thoughtful. Anyway, those are all of my whys, and before I get into all of the hows, I am very excited to announce the sponsor of today's video, which is Skillshare. Recently, I've been really missing my crochet practice and I've been wanting to get back into working with yarn. So I've been taking an awesome class on Skillshare all about how to create your own crochet amigurumis. I really hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, the class is called the Amigurumis Crochet Masterclass from Total Beginner to Expert, and it has totally inspired me to once again pick up my crochet hook. In this class, the teacher Emily has 4 detailed amigurumi tutorials that range from a beginner to an advanced skill level. And they teach all of the techniques needed to create these very adorable little creatures. I love learning new techniques in the context of a project, so I worked on the Little Lion project, which is the beginner amigurumi tutorial, and I really enjoyed getting to learn how to do the magic loop in the context of making my little lion. Personally, I love taking classes on Skillshare because I'm able to delve into all of my interests, and I can take classes about things that might be a little bit out of my field of expertise. I feel like it helps me develop my skills as a creative, which is awesome. Skillshare is the largest online learning community with thousands of classes led by amazing world-class creatives like professional illustrators, renowned graphic designers, and successful entrepreneurs. You can learn directly from real, super talented and inspiring creatives. And there are so many categories of classes to choose from, like art, illustration, design, and photography. Skillshare has a 7-day free trial and a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're interested in starting your learning journey with Skillshare, I highly recommend it, and I have a good deal for you. The first 500 people to click the link in the description box of this video or scan this QR code will receive 20% off their first year of Skillshare, so jump on it and get started today. And thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Okay, the next thing on the agenda, let's talk about all the tools you're going to need to get into sewing. Don't worry, it's not that many. I'm going to assume that everyone watching has a really small budget, so this is how I would get into sewing if I had only a few $100s to invest into the hobby. I'll recommend the highest quality solutions for the best prices as much as I can. The cheapest way to get into sewing is of course going to be hand sewing. Hand sewing is not going to be for everyone, but it is absolutely doable to make gorgeous garments just using your hands and no machines. And funnily enough, the more I've been sewing, the more I actually prefer to sew by hand. I don't know why, it's just very cathartic. And for example, I sewed a shirt for my husband for Christmas, and I did it almost entirely sewn by hand, and I made it in a few days. I was working really hard, but it doesn't take as long as you might think. You might not get the satisfaction of finishing your projects fast enough to get really excited about sewing, so I probably would recommend getting a machine if you can, but hey, you can stitch by hand. This is what you need. You're gonna need some thread, some snips, a thimble to protect your hand, a needle, or better yet, needles, a nice pair of fabric shears, and likely you'll benefit from owning a ruler. Not all of these rulers, just the classic ruler, this guy. Oh, and pins! You need pins, friend. And this should get you started, more or less. As I go throughout this video, I'm going to be giving recommendations for where to buy these tools or what brands to look out for. So while I'm here, let me give you a few recommendations regarding those tools specifically. Because it's fine to be like, you need pins and thread, but I think it's more helpful to actually give you brand names and recommendations based on not only my experience, but the experience of many, many other sewists, which I have talked to over my sewing journey. Let me just give you some good recommendations. Okay, in terms of fabric snips, I recommend the Fiskars Snips. I have 2 pairs. I've had them for years. They have retained their sharpness and I am obsessed with them. I cannot sew without them. Great for trimming threads. For fabric shears, I don't have a specific recommendation, but just get something in the middle price range and take care of them. Only use them on fabric and get them sharpened when they get dull. Everyone's gonna have their own preference for what needles they like, so probably the best thing to do is just get a few different kinds of needles and see what you enjoy using. Currently, my favorite needles to work with are sashiko needles. They're very sharp, but again, that's a personal preference. I think the best thimbles are leather thimbles, and I've tried quite a few thimbles. But use whatever you want. I just think it's important to have a thimble, especially if you're doing a lot of hand sewing. In terms of pins, I think you should just get high quality. They're basically the same price, and they're going to be a lot nicer to use. I have spent my whole sewing career sewing with terrible pins, and I recently upgraded to clover glass head pins, and the difference is remarkable. I can't believe I didn't have these before. I asked a lot of you guys what your favorite pins are, and overwhelmingly the response was glass head pins. So yeah, they're not even expensive. Just do yourself a favor and get yourself nice pins. And thread. Do not buy cheap thread. Your machine is not gonna like it. You might even have actual problems going on with your machine because of cheap thread. That's my own personal story. It took me so long to figure out what was wrong with my machine, and it turns out it was my cheap thread. So you can get Gooderman thread that is a high quality thread, but I think the highest quality for the best price is Rassant thread. And I heard on the street that this is like what the fashion students use, so I got really influenced. But yeah, I use Rassant thread now, and I'm a big fan. And yeah, those are all of my recommendations. I hope you enjoyed them. And hand sewing is awesome. You can have really good control over your stitching. You can make really nice, strong seams with your hand stitches. But I also understand that it's just not going to be for everyone, so why don't we talk about machine recommendations? So you want to buy a sewing machine. So exciting. Here is what I would do if I were you. You basically have 2 options. You can either buy your machine brand new or you can buy it secondhand. And regardless of which of those options you end up going with, I wouldn't spend more than a few $100s on your first machine. All your first sewing machine has to do is work, not break the bank, and give you an opportunity to see if you enjoy sewing. So yeah, buying a machine brand new is totally great. My first machine that I bought was a Singer Heavy Duty, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but it did get me started. I used it for quite a few years before I realized I needed to upgrade. So you could go down that route buying a brand new machine that's just sort of simple and gets you across the line. I would recommend you look for machines that aren't computerized and don't have too many crazy stitch settings. You basically just need a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch. So yeah, you could buy a machine brand new, but I would actually really encourage you to try and find one secondhand. I've bought 3 machines secondhand and they've all been awesome so far, so I'm kind of a fan and an advocate for secondhand sewing machine purchases. Great machines to look out for are going to be Brother or Janome machines. Obviously there are better machines than that, but that's a really good price point, those brands. Of course, if you find other brands that are cheaper, that could be awesome too, so just keep your eyes peeled. Other things that can be indicators of quality machines are reliable sellers with good ratings and clear communication. I also want to see really nice detailed descriptions of the product. A green flag for me is if the seller says they have had their machine regularly serviced, which indicates that they have taken care of their machine. It's also a preference of mine if the seller is only selling this machine because they're upgrading. It means that they have been using this machine and loving it and taking care of it, and it hasn't been sitting in a basement for like 15 years. It's also good if you're buying it from someone who's clearly a sewist and not just someone who like found this sewing machine at their grandma's house and now they're selling it for cash. You want to buy it from someone who cares about this craft, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that's all of my thoughts and recommendations about buying your first sewing machine. I really hope that was helpful, but let me know if you have any questions at all. Pop them in the comment section and I will do my best to help you. I didn't even breathe when I said that. But yeah, I'm here for you. Buying your first sewing machine is so exciting. And I know it's a bit scary and it's a bit overwhelming, but it's gonna be worth it. You can do it. Okay, let's imagine that you have just bought your first ever sewing machine. So exciting. There should only be a few more things that you need before you can start sewing, and those things are an iron and an ironing board, absolutely essential. You also are probably going to need a fabric marker. There are a bunch to choose from and everyone has their own preferences. You can get chalk markers, heat, air, or water erasable markers. My preference would probably be a friction marker or a Crayola water erasable marker, but those are just preferences, so you're gonna have to have a play and see what you like. Other than that, you'll need a tape measure, and that's all I could really think of. Of course, this goes on top of all the tools that I've already referenced, like the shears, the fabric snips, the needles, the thread. Oh my goodness, you need needles for your machine, by the way. Really, really important. And I would recommend getting a lot of needles. It's much better to have excess in case you break a bunch in a project or they get blunt. You really just don't want to have to go to the store in the middle of your project for needles. It's very annoying. So yeah, make sure you've got a bunch of needles for your machine. You've got pins, you've got ruler. Oh, the only other thing that I thought of is you might want an overlocker. Let me show you mine. Okay, this is my overlocker. It's a Janome Mylock 644D. I bought it secondhand a few years ago and I love it. The overlocker is predominantly used to do the finishing stitch that you'll find on the inside of your garments. It helps to protect the raw edge of the fabric so it doesn't fray when you wash it again and again and again. It can also be used for a lot of other things. Predominantly one of those things might be sewing stretch material, but mainly I use it for finishing raw edges. And the reason that I wouldn't recommend it straight away when you're starting sewing is because there are a lot of great ways to finish edges that don't involve using an overlocker. You can do a zigzag stitch, you can overcast the edges by hand, you can bind your seams, you can do a flat felled seam or a French seam. There's kind of a few options. So if you're really keen, by all means get an overlocker, they're awesome. But if you're just starting out, I would recommend seeing if you like sewing, and then if you're loving it a few months into the process, then consider getting an overlocker. That's what I would do. That's overlockers. So you've got your setup. Now it's time to sew! And to help you with that endeavor, these are my thoughts on how to start your projects. And I will be delivering them in the style of a high school teacher, flinging their MacBook around while they talk to you. So if you're scared, just look away for a second. My first thought is start sewing stuff that you want to sew. If you want to make a dress, if you want to make pants, find a really simple pattern for those things that you feel excited about and start there. You are absolutely clever enough to start with that. People are going to say you should make something really simple like a bag or a scrunchie. And yes, what they're trying to say is it's really good to start with an easy win, and I do agree, but I just think that you're heaps cleverer than that. Heaps cleverer. You can start simple if you want to, but if you want to start on something a little bit more exciting, I highly recommend it because you're going to do better when you're passionate and interested in what you're doing. That's my opinion, at least. My second thought, patterns are really helpful, especially indie patterns. Don't get those big mega chain patterns like Butterick or Vogue. They're really flimsy, thin paper, and the instructions are just never comprehensive enough. Indie pattern makers are where it's at because they are sewists and they're making patterns for sewists. They care so much about doing a good job, and you can just tell. These are my favorite pattern makers, indie pattern makers. I'll make room for them, right here. Soften Studio, Ann Tilly Handmade, Spaghetti Western, Anna Allen Clothing, Merchant and Mills, Layla Makes, Fruck Studios, Sew Like Shop. Am I missing another one of my favorites? Roberts Wood, Paradise Patterns, and Gracie Steel, to name a few. I also love just getting PDF patterns because you can reprint them in different sizes if you require that. Also, if you have any recommendations for indie pattern makers, please leave them in the comment section because I would love to know what you guys are enjoying. My next thought is that sewing is kind of like Lego. It's shapes, it's instructions, it's putting something together, and I think if we can reframe it to be a really fun and silly endeavor, it just makes it easier. So if you're kind of scared about the process of sewing, it's just like Lego. If you can follow instructions, you can do it. You can make the thing. Another thing that can help you with starting your projects is watch a bunch of YouTube videos. Just watch people making stuff. You will pick up on the lingo, you will see them do right sides together, you will just be getting a lot of casual understanding of the craft. And then when you get to doing your own project, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can do that. I think just pop some YouTube videos on. A little bit of With Wendy, a little bit of Bernadette Banner, maybe a little bit more from Kylie V if you so please. And yeah, just hang out with us. You will just download so much. Maybe not from me, but from the others, you certainly will. And my last thought is try and design a setup that works for you. Keep stuff accessible if you can. It's easier to start if you can see your machine and it's not 100 things to set up and pack down. If you have space, use it. Okay, next on the agenda, we are going to discuss how to improve your sewing skills fast. I personally think that you can get good at sewing quite fast because if you understand the premise of construction and it clicks for you, you just apply that to everything that you make. So don't feel discouraged, feel encouraged. You can make quick progress. These are some things that are going to help. Firstly, iron your work always. Iron every single seam. Iron your fabric before you cut it. Whenever you see any sort of crinkle, iron it away. This is a step that I missed out on when I was starting, and when I realized just how imperative it was, I never looked back. My second thought is to sew slow. Just take a big breath, be mindful, thoughtful, and patient, and your work will benefit from it. Take the time to pin things, to mark things, to double check before you sew. It all pays off. Making mistakes can be really frustrating, so if you're working a little bit slower, you're going to make less mistakes, and it's probably just going to be a more enjoyable process, and your work will look more professional. In saying that, you should definitely unpick if you make an error. When I started and I made errors, I would get so angry and I would just sort of scrap the project. But unpicking is not a big deal. Just get your little seam ripper out, unpick your stitches, and just do it again. It's not a big deal. Try not to get frustrated. It takes a little bit more time, but I would highly recommend, if you can baste by hand, do those hand stitches. In saying that, my next note is stitch by hand whenever you need to. That was something that I always felt was a bit of a failure. Like I wanted everything to be machine stitched because it was like, oh, I'm very professional for doing that. But actually, whenever I can't get a really clean finish on my machine, I just do it by hand. It is so much easier. You get so much more control. Yes, it takes time, but again, I'm gonna choose quality every single time these days, and I recommend that you do the same. I think a lot of garments would have some hand stitching in them if they weren't mass produced as efficiently as possible. So I think we're kind of used to associating machine stitching with quality, but that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes a hand stitch is actually a really good move, and the only reason you're not seeing it is because it takes actual time. So yeah, invest in yourself. Stitch by hand, queen. My next thought, mark notches and make sure they line up. And then I say, try lots of patterns. You will learn something new every single time, and that is so, so true. Also, look at clothing with curiosity. You will learn so very much. When you go out and you see someone wearing a cool thing, just have a little think. Where are the seams in that garment? What sort of shape is that sleeve? How does that garment work? When you go shopping, have a big look at how everything is constructed. Your brain will start to download things, I promise, I promise. And my last thing to help you improve fast, cut neatly. This is kind of hard to do, I have to say, but if you can take your time when you're cutting your pattern pieces out, it's just gonna help you a lot when you're making things line up and you're pinning things together. Yeah. That all comes down to sew slow. Sew slow, cut neatly, and whenever you can, try and be patient and have a mindset of, I want to achieve quality work rather than I want to achieve fast work. At least that's where I've sort of landed after a few years of sewing. It definitely took me a while to get there. I was such a speed demon at the beginning, but now I really enjoy just taking my time and enjoying the process. Guys, we haven't even talked about one of the most exciting parts of sewing yet, and that is fabric shopping. Every sewist who's been sewing for a while probably has a nice big old stash of fabric because it's just a really fun thing to keep your eyes peeled for. And once you start sewing, you just never stop looking for gorgeous fabric. Welcome to your new life. Anyway, here are some thoughts. If you're an absolute beginner, I highly recommend thrifting your fabric. Get some big, old, nice quality bed sheets, either in cotton or linen, and use that fabric for all of your starting projects. It just takes the pressure off. If you make mistakes, and if you're just having a play and a little muck around, it's fine. You haven't invested a lot of money into the fabric, so there's not really anything to lose. So yeah, take the pressure off and just thrift some fabric to get started. And honestly, I've been sewing for ages and I still love thrifting my fabric. It's kind of fun to see what you can get. Just make sure you wash the fabric before you use it. Actually, you should wash your fabric no matter if you get it secondhand or brand new anyway. That's a tip for everyone. Just always wash your fabric before you use it. You probably already knew that. If the op shops and the thrift stores are not providing, you can also keep your ears out for secondhand markets, or you can join little groups on Facebook Marketplace to see other people who are selling their fabric and remnants and such like that. You can also keep your eyes peeled for really cool textiles in the op shop that already are in garments, and you can do thrift flips or upcycling projects. I love to do that as well. You don't have to keep your scrap fabric at the end of projects. Some people are just not going to be excited about working with their scraps. I personally love patchworking, so I try and keep as much as possible, but don't feel guilty if you've got scrap fabric and you just want it gone. That's fine. Another thought is that I would steer clear of polyester or synthetic fibers whenever possible. They're not that nice to wear, they're not always that nice to work with, and I think natural fibers are just kind of unbeatable for luxury and for an enjoyable fabric to wear and work with. So things like cotton, linen, wool, lovely. There's other natural fibers as well, I just can't think of any of them, so. I mean, I've got polyester and stuff in my stash, I just don't really like working with it, and I really don't like wearing it, so that's just a personal recommendation. It's a little less harsh on the environment and a little less harsh on your body if you work with natural fibers whenever possible. Just do your best. And obviously, if you're really excited about a fabric, I wouldn't worry about it too much. I always think it's good to go where the excitement is leading you. Hot take alert. My last thought about fabric shopping, buy only what you need, if you can. It's very easy to get swept up in all of the beautiful colors and the textiles, but if you have a vision for your projects, try and stay on track, because it's pretty easy to build your stash up to a place where it becomes a little bit overwhelming. And yeah, if you're just starting out, try and be mindful. It's hard. Buying fabric is so fun. Just do your best. No one's judging you. I'm just speaking to myself from the past when I used to buy so much fabric, and now I try and be really thoughtful about what I buy and when I buy it. Guys, I'm getting sleepy laying on the couch. I know I've hit you with a lot of different thoughts in this video, but I've got one more topic to talk about, and that is how to keep momentum with your sewing practice. If you get stuck or frustrated, do a few smaller projects so you can get a win under your belt. I use this tactic all of the time, and I can confirm it helps. Something that could be really helpful is finding sewing Facebook groups and joining them and asking lots of questions and just learning from the sewing community at large. There are some amazing sewists on Instagram and TikTok as well, so follow them, find them, see what they're doing, get inspiration, and just join the sewing community online. There's lots of learning to be had by talking to other sewists. Oh, whenever you have a project idea, write it down. You may forget it later on. How do I know? Don't ask. You'll be thankful that you've got ideas written down when you're having a lull and you have no idea what to make next. Then you can just go to your book and it's like, oh my goodness, so many wonderful project ideas. Also, have fun with it. Make sure you're creating time for your crazy ideas and don't shut them down. It's good for your brain to play. It feels fun. So true. Make sure you have a sewing buddy that can appreciate all of your hard work and all the little details that you put into your garments. It's really, really nice for your brain when you finish a project and then you can just go and show someone else and tell them about the whole story and get to discuss the whole journey. You know, I always take my projects to Elijah and I show him every single seam, all of the ups and downs. I just tell him about the whole process and he asks me questions and we just get to talk about it and discuss it, and it makes it feel like, yes, someone actually gets how much work this was. You feel really good about it all, you know? So make sure you find a buddy that gets it. And my last point, and the final point of this video, is be kind to yourself. Learning a new task is difficult and it can be overwhelming, so take it step by step, give yourself a lot of encouragement, a lot of treats, and a pat on the back every single time you do something challenging, because you are amazing. And I think that's all of my thoughts about how to begin sewing in 2025. I really hope you enjoyed the video or you got something out of it, but if you have any questions at all about sewing, about starting your journey, just pop them in the comment section and I will do my best to get back to you. And if I can't, I'm sure that a beautiful sewist will jump into the comments as well and help you out with your questions, because we all just love sewing and we're cheering you on as you start your sewing journey. It's just an amazing craft, so fun, good for the mind, good for the soul, good for the wallet. Really good for your own cool personal style development. And yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm gonna stop talking now because I have been talking for so long. If you liked the video, give it a like, and if you want more sewing content from me, hit the subscribe. And yeah, I'm sending you so much love, and I'm sending you so much good sewing vibes, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have an amazing week. Bye!